Erin, thank you so much for joining us here today. The woman, the myth, and the legend. I think
Oh, no.
if only Goliath David, was a female. So welcome. I think, for all of us listening today, I think the story, obviously in the movie, Erin Brockovich, was one of the most empowering stories. And I think because it's sort of that story of your everyday person becoming a hero and using their voice. And obviously at times you are underestimated, and it's about understanding that you don't have to be, the smartest or the most experienced, or the strongest person to be able to actually make social change and to use your voice. Such an inspiring story, and I'm so excited to, speak about that a little bit further today. But I just wanted to start off by going back to where it all began. I guess so much of it would have just started with your curiosity. But how did it sort of evolve, and why did it become so important to you to see this through?
Well, this was a long time ago, and I was 30 years old. So I am going to be 60 in June. I'm now the grandmother of 4. And
Wow.
I'm like, wow. My granddaughter was just here before I came on, and she's 6 today. And
Oh,
she says, I can't believe I'm 6. And I'm like, I know, Molly, you're getting so big so fast. I said, I can't believe I'm going to be 60 in June. And she's like, wow, you're really old. Awesome.
well, you look
Awesome.
amazing. No one would have thought you were hitting 60.
So,
Wow.
you know, when I started my work in Hinckley, I was 30, and I had been in a car wreck in Reno, Nevada. And my youngest was a teeny baby, like 5 months old. And Matthew and Katie were, I don't know, 3 and 2, something like that. And I moved here. I had met the biker dude, George. And so I moved down here to Los Angeles. And at the time, he introduced me to Ed Masry because I had been in a car wreck. So that was initially how I met Ed. And his partner, Jimmy, ended up representing me in my car accident case. And it really didn't go the way I thought, or maybe they thought, where I would have a settlement. It just didn't go that way. The jury was like, yeah, go get a job. So I'm like, okay. So I asked Ed for a job. I begged a little for a job. Ed was a little leery, but he gave me a job. When I first started, I worked in their work comp department, and they saw I like people. I like to hear their stories. I relate. I understand. I oftentimes say in my keynote addresses, I am you, you are me. We're all together, the Beatles song. And we're people. And, I'm even noticing, I think all of us are, during this COVID pandemic and the desocialization, how much we really need and interact and support and empower and inspire each other. And so I've always been that person. And then Ed moved me into a different department. He came in one day, just like in the movie, and he brought a file with him. And I started to go through the file. It was children, it was mothers, things didn't make sense. And I asked to start looking further into it, and I did. I think the first thing that was really happening for me is I wasn't trained for this, but I'm a person, because I'm a dyslexic, I rely greatly on an internal voice and my intuition and my common sense set of skills. And that's what I started to apply. It was just like the moment where I saw 2-headed frogs and green water, and someone says to me, that's normal. My inner self went, yeah, no, it's not. And oftentimes when we know that, the voices around us say, oh no, you're wrong. It's normal. Don't pay attention to that. Don't be a shit disturber. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not a doctor. You're not a lawyer. You're not a scientist. You're not any of that. And I'm thinking, I don't have to be any of that to tell you what I see is not right. And that's where I really started to respond. And I I was a foot soldier. I saw, I heard, I hugged, I felt, I knew something was not right. Couldn't quite put my finger on it at first, but the more I kept coming back and I became persistent and resolute to follow through, that I was able to start pulling back the layers of the onion and saw what happened. And, you know, my life has evolved so much from that moment. And I've always asked myself, I've never been comfortable with this being about me. It's not about me. It's about all of us. And it's about our environment. And how do I project off of me onto you that you are this person too? And I've learned that it's about them believing that they can, or them learning to cut out the noise and be centered enough themselves within their own environment. You know what's going on around you. So I do so much of this work in my keynotes. I have a program called RAM, which is about realization, assessment, and motivation of one's self. We will always realize the potential of someone else, or we're looking for that hero and we think we couldn't possibly be it. And yet we're afraid to assess internally where our failures might be, because I believe embracing your shortcomings and your failures is acceptance, where you'll really find your strengths. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's about our motivation. So I teach a lot because I want to, like, how can I give this back to others? I don't want that spotlight on me. It isn't about me. And it was about that community. I watched them rise, and we became we're here for each other, and you got this, you know, the cheerleader and the ball player. And we all have those questions. And to be able to let our guard down and go, we're all scared, or we're all vulnerable, or we've all been affected. Let's get together from that perspective. What has happened to us?
Yeah.
I talk a lot about logic, leverage, loyalty, and love. Logic's your common sense. Leverage is joining with the people. Loyalty is the stick-to-itiveness to your cause. And lastly, I think we all ask ourselves, I do every day, why am I up today in the rat race, getting on a crowded airplane, going to have a fight at a law firm to help a community rise up? And I'm like, why? Well, because we love, I love people. I love my life, this opportunity on this planet. I love the environment. I have children. I would love to see them go to college. This is our purpose. And so this is my life has evolved into, it's not about me. How can I help you realize your potential? And I encourage people, stop looking for the hero and become the hero. And my 4th book coming out this August, I'm so proud of it, is called Superman's Not Coming: Our National Water Crisis and What We, the People, Can Do About It. See, there's the answer. Us, we, the people. And I think that that's exciting. And I know we're in a dark hour. I know we're all feeling it. But it's that shift, it's that moment where I think we can now see a bigger picture, and we can begin to see and believe in us.
Wow, that's fantastic advice. I think definitely so much of empowerment that starts within. People are looking for external factors to sort of, motivate themselves and motivate others, but really it's about, bringing that out in yourself and in others. And certainly in working in the mining industry myself for many years, Australia, Honduras, the States, it's no easy feat, calling a mining company out. But importantly for you to be able to work with people like Ed, and also the community as well, to really empower them and also come together, because there would have been so much adversity there, and a lot of the times it's just to be quiet. you know, as you've said before, and just let things slide. I know Ed said in interviews as well, it was a lot of investment for him as well. So your ability to empower both the community as well as, you know, Ed, who was your partner through it all, how did you do that?
I think the law side and Ed, first of all, Ed and I were very close, and Ed would see my persistence. So that began to say something to him. You know, he was always like, oh, God, she's back. She's back. She's back.
Not going.
He really did. He's like, it's her. When I was younger, as I said, I'm a dyslexic. And when I began my work in Hinckley, I didn't see it as a youngster, what my parents were giving to me, but it became apparent to me in Hinckley. And part of that was my mom's lessons to me of stick-to-itiveness.
Yes.
Definition, noun, propensity to follow through in a determined manner. Dogged persistence born of obligation and stubbornness. Okay, I get that. I'm stubborn, my middle name. I'm dogged, I'm persistent, and sometimes I just can't let things go. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. But I kept coming back and coming back. I realized that for the law side, they needed information. They needed to see, you know, you have to prove it in court. So as I got further involved and I'm learning more about chromium-6, you know, because like Roberta Walker had records and they told her, oh, it's chromium-6, it's good for you. And I'm like, what is this stuff? That I got to the state, and when I started to uncover documents that showed there was a contamination, that showed there was a plume, that somehow got covered up, that I could take something back to Ed and go, boom, here, take a look at that. And it took a big person like Ed, who didn't have an overinflated ego, to go, wow, I think you're onto something. And gave me the inspiration and the permission, if you will, to go out and do it. And I talk in my book, Superman's Not Coming, about all these communities I go to. And what I see is that they are asking for permission to fight City Hall. And what permission is, and I think what we're asking for, is support. You know what? I think you can do that. And Ed, my mom, gave that to me. And when I got out into the community, it became a very cyclical moment where we would help each other and we could start finding different documents. And I started to do some testing. And then Ed's like, we need to get you OSHA certified. And then I passed all the OSHA certification, which is the Occupational Safety Health Administrations and associations. And I started bringing facts. So I had an idea. I was in a moment where my hackles were up and I kept almost peeling each layer strategically back. And with each one, I had more mounting evidence that gave the law this like, we got something going on. And that's just kind of how it all started to formulate. You know, doing this is like putting a big puzzle together.
Yes.
Sometimes pieces come in and they don't fit, and you have to sit back and like, you know, look around, and that started to happen. And it was a huge cover up. And you know what I learned from my father, I'm from Kansas, and my dad ran the pipelines for Texaco. And I would talk to him about this. He goes, no, that's not making sense to me, Erin. I got in really big trouble with my father when I was in high school for skipping school and lying. And I got grounded for an entire school semester. He wrote me this amazing letter about, if we're not honest with each other, how that kind of tears down the fabric of our family and our relationship. And that it was deceptions that became our greatest downfall. And I started to smell that, if you will. Somebody somewhere knows something and is lying about something. That really got me going.
Yeah.
So it was that moment of taking little bits of common sense. You're lying. I'm not sure. That doesn't make sense. I want to follow through. You know, and at the core of this passion came out of me for these people. I'm a mom too. I wouldn't want to see some of the blood tests that those mothers saw. What does this mean? And asking questions. And God, it was really right, kind of under our nose, because I looked up and all the trees were dead. The animals were covered in tumors. People were sick. And right across the way, there's this huge, I'm like, what is that? And so it's putting the pieces together, and you can put them together. And you need to be dogged and persistent. You need to rely on this sense of yourself. And I will tell you, in my environmental work, 99.99% of the time, it is a mother. Out of those instincts is like, I don't think that's right. Something's not right.
Yeah.
And it's 99.99% of the time a mother that will email me. And I'll tell you what, they're never wrong. Never underestimate the power of a mother or a woman that has that connection. And if she's onto it, she's going to stay onto it.
That's right. That's right. The intuition's the most powerful, tool that you have. I think being able to actually have the courage. Curiosity is one thing, as we talked about, but having the courage to be able to actually, act on that, is another thing. So, and within all of this, obviously you would have come up against a lot of adversity. And you mentioned as well that you have dyslexia. How did you manage to turn weaknesses like that or some of the other adversities into actually strengths?
Well, a lot of it was my background. My mom and my dad always, my mom always taught me, just because you're different doesn't mean you're inferior. So it had to become a perception. And oftentimes we feed ourselves negative information. I call her Negative Nancy. Oh, and she resides right up here. And I battle with her a lot. Whoa, don't tell me I can't, because I can. So it was my mom and my dad giving me that opportunity not to lose that perception, that because I was different. And this is where I feel it's really important. We beat ourselves up over our weaknesses. Forever I beat myself up that I wasn't good with numbers and I wasn't comprehending the way I was supposed to. So I never liked being in that box. And I kind of was formulating, just because I'm different doesn't mean I'm inferior. I didn't really realize the strength of my weakness until I began my work in Hinckley. I work backwards. So I don't take a number that's here today and move forward with that. I take that number and I'm like, how did we get to this number today? Because it had to have come from a higher number back here somewhere. So one of the first documents I read from Environment and Ecology stated that it was 1992 and 5 ppm of hex chrome still existed in the monitoring wells. 5 ppm I had learned by now was hazardous, legal hazardous waste. And the report went on to say that 90% of the chromate had already been removed via domestic water use. So I'm like, if it's 1992 and it's still 5 ppm, what was it in 1982?
Yeah.
What was it in 1972? What was it in 1962 when all these people were living out here? And I set out to find that number. And I did in a PG&E document. The hexavalent chromium hit the aquifer in 1960 at 58 ppm. Boom. So all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, all these years thinking I could never do this, that weakness that was seen as a deficit was actually my strength.
Wow.
I was like, what? And so oftentimes we have this idea of who we're supposed to be. We get judged, we get suppressed, we begin to question ourselves. And that's the worst possible place I think anyone can go. And if you can really be honest with yourself, you know, I just had an argument with one of my kids, and the result has not been good. And I'm like, I'm imperfect. I am going to make some mistakes. I am, in some instances, maybe too hurtful in my words to try to teach you a lesson. That's not my intention. But we oftentimes want to hold somebody in that place or pedestal. And when we're disappointed, things change. And so for me, I need to be always honest with myself. I'm not perfect, but I at least want to try. I want to care. I want to ask questions. I want to hear what's happening to you. And oftentimes we won't do that because somehow we've let another perception onto ourselves, and then we doubt ourselves.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the most important thing of all, is that relationship you have with yourself, to forgive yourself, to love yourself, and to be okay with yourself, no matter how you are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Everyone's got their own unique set of strengths, you know, and it's finding that and being able to tap into that. Just love your message here that, you know, oftentimes the self-doubt comes from our weaknesses, and we don't actually realize that they can become your biggest strength. So I think you know, you're just such a perfect example of that, which I love so much. And I think looking back as well, obviously being underestimated, and as a female in the mining industry, stereotypes do exist, and you're a former beauty queen as well. So you had the looks, you had the sass and the everything to go with it, but you were able to still remain true to yourself during all of this. And certainly that's how it was depicted in the movie. And, you know, Julia Roberts play you is just, wow, that must just be a dream come true.
I never even dreamt it, by the way. So what happened?
You know, I think everyone wants to see a little bit of Julia Roberts in themselves. And then when she gets to play you, that must have been amazing. But just your ability to, you know, just be true to yourself and or, you know, authentically you is so important to be able to actually, you know, achieve or make social change or do whatever, you know, needs to be done.
You know, I look back to, you know, like when the movie first came out, everybody kind of like, you know, had this perception because I dressed a certain way, therefore I was a certain person. That's not shame on me. That's shame on you for judging a book by its cover and not knowing what's going on.
That's right.
It was disastrously hot out there. If I could have run around naked, I think I would have. I mean, I'm out there collecting dead frogs in, you know, windstorms that are blasting my body at 130 degrees. I'm like, what am I doing? So, I ran into all these issues, and I don't know. I do look as, is it because I'm a woman? And that there's this idea that I'm in a place where I have no business being. I think we ask this of ourselves a lot. So I went through those things with people, whether it would be sexual innuendos that were meant to bring it down, but whether I was dumb enough or I didn't have an ego enough, I was like, thanks. I just went about my business. I didn't formulate something that, if I felt you were suppressing me, you'll get a reaction out of me. And it won't be a good one. I don't like to be suppressed. Yeah. But if you're trying to be coy with me and make me second guess myself because, hey, you know, why are you wearing a bustier with the big boobs? I'm like, oh, you like it? Thanks. And I've run about my business. And so I think that saved me just because I didn't take that as anything personal. Now, if you get a little cagier with me and you start to do the, well, you're not this in the box, so why should I listen to you? I'm like, oh, see, that just is a gaslight. I'm like, no. And when you do that, that says to me, what do you know that I don't?
Yeah.
Why would you say that? I'll turn that back around. That's kind of my backwards thinking, I guess, because the way I'm wired, it's how I code information. So those become big signs for me. But I've been through that, and how I handled it is, I think I either wasn't really aware that that was meant to be suppressive, or I didn't have an ego enough to think that way. It's just like, oh, okay, thanks, you know, bye. That maybe had saved me as I've gotten older and gone through it. I know it, but what I have learned is how I'm going to deal with that is my response to it.
That's right.
And so I quickly don't self-punish for that, because that's not on me. No. And I think a lot of times what happens is we take that on, and then we feel bad, and then we get depressed or suppressed or weak, and then then you're vulnerable. So I always have to check in with myself and go, okay, I got this, Erin, and you're safe. I don't need to hear that. It's a learning process. It's difficult. We all go through it. And I think we need to be able to talk to somebody. That's why I'm enjoying this conversation. I think you know yourself in your line of work where we find that support system, so we don't slip into something that works for someone else to push you down.
That's right.
So my question is, when you're feeling that, you need to look at, why are you wanting to push me down, and what's going to happen in here with yourself and how we feel about ourselves. And I've done that over the years, and it hasn't always been easy. No. And sometimes, you know what, I have those moments where I'm like, whatever, fuck off. I mean, I'm serious.
Yeah. And there's nothing more liberating, you know, than someone who wants to underestimate you, and then you just come back with it all. And I think that was such the power of the movie as well, you know, particularly as a female. Again, right or wrong, stereotypes do exist. You do have to have, you know, thick skin. You really do, particularly as a female, and, you know, some male dominated industries and things as well. When you're feeling, sometimes you're out of your comfort zone, you know. You just really have to do that, and be really careful of what you take on, which is exactly, you know, your point before. People have their ulterior motives. People are going from their own signs of, you know, weakness or insecurity. So you have to be really careful, and it takes practice. You know, I think it does, to recognize those, and to actually be able to say, hey, I can see that you're coming from a place of this, you know,
right,
security. I'm not going to take this on, because I think so much of it is actually deciding what you're going to take on board and deal with, and what you're just going to, you know.
And you're precisely right. It is what, and I'm going to pick and choose what it is I'm going to take on here. And everybody thought, and you've seen the line in the movie, you know, how'd you get 634 signatures? Well, you know, it's called boobs, and I'm sure they intimated, you know what, we all saw it. For me, if that's what it is you're going to think of me, I'm not going to bother to change it. And that's where that off the cuff comment came from in the movie. If that's what you think, because let's be honest, that's what you're thinking. That's the only way I could have gotten 634 signatures, was what, a sexual failure. So I'm going to go with that. So boom, there it was in your face. And it was like, whoa, God forbid I had a brain.
Yeah, no, that was such a.
You're right about that. You that dialogue. I'm just not going to go with this today.
Yeah, I guess today we do have, you know, platforms. We do have social media, but when you're out there and you're in male-dominated industries or things like that, you don't always have this, you know, the girls gang right there, people just to back you. It can be quite isolating, and, you know, that's when I think you can be even more vulnerable, and susceptible to self-doubt and things like that. That's why I love so much your partnership and your relationship with Ed. He said, I can't quite pick what it is, what the skill is that Erin has, but
yes,
he just sort of lets you go for it, but then is there to, you know, pull you back into line and has your back. And I just love that. And I think, you know, everyone sort of needs their Ed.
absolutely. It's the yin, the yang, the frick, the frack, whatever, you know, it's the balance. It's the scales of justice. And it takes two, you know, jealousy gets in the way of a lot of things. And to just truly love and want that person to succeed is amazing. And, you know, Ed passed away. I was holding his hand when he died.
Oh.
And what a gift. And the wisdom he gave to me, the wisdom of my mom and my dad. And I find myself now in my turning 60, what wisdom I want to impart and that I can leave, the legacy of how you too can pick up the torch and run with it. And it all stems from forgiving yourself, loving yourself, believing in yourself, and the self-doubt. And actually, it's okay to have all those emotions. I still run through them. I get into situations, I'm like, breathe, Erin. You're not in over your head. Think. Just sit back and think. I don't come off the cuff as much as people would think I did in the film. And I do have those moments where it comes rolling right out. But I will back away. I will breathe. And I will think, what did I heard you, but was I listening? Oh, wait a minute, you gave me a clue. And so I become very strategical, actually, in how I'm going to actually go forward and where I go forward. There's been moments in my life where I've just jumped out, and that hasn't always served me well. So just when you're in that moment, take a step back, take a breath, and process what you've seen and heard. Write it down, write it out, have that moment to bounce some ideas off of somebody. And that was the beauty of Ed. Yeah, I just had a recent situation talking about social media, because it's such a double-edged sword, and you do have to have thick skin. Some of the things people have written and said to me, I'm like, I write them back. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't think you'd write me back. I'm like, well, then what the frick did you send me that for? What'd you think I was going to do? Somebody jumped on LinkedIn, was mad at me about a case. And they're like, you're not a plaintiff, so shut the fuck up. And I'm like, breathe, Erin, breathe. Because your instinct is to, I'm like
that. Yeah.
Breathe through that. But I'm not going to let that go, because see, that was suppressive. Through bullying. You want me to shut up? No.
Yeah.
So I wrote back and I said, dear sir, I'm sorry you're feeling so angry. No, I do not have to shut up. I have an opinion that I want to express and be heard, just as you shared with me. The difference is I'm not going to bully you into it or suppress you into it. So I hope that you understand I'm not going to shut up. I've been asked my opinion and I gave it. And I hope you have a nice day and stay safe during the most treacherous of times. And they wrote back and they're like, oh my God. So how to, when someone comes at you, step back and go over here and look at what just happened. It's a really, 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 really hard thing to learn. And I'm telling you, it's taken me most of my life to learn it. And where I can impart some wisdom. When you find yourself
without
there,
reacting,
pull back for a minute. It doesn't mean you're weak.
No.
Just throttle back for a moment.
The movie is based on the fact that you were able to bring a corporation to its knees. Was there any part during that whole process where you felt that it was bringing you to your knees?
Absolutely. I could tell you, raising kids has brought me to my knees.
Yeah. And you did this while you were raising three 3 kids.
Yeah. Relationships and divorce has brought me to my knees. And corporations can try. And again, you have to step back for a moment and take a look. We don't always see the bigger picture. And if you can't, you won't be able to deal with this microscopic moment that's happening and start to uncover it. And yeah, but you know what I do? I allow myself a day or two to crawl under the covers, to have a good cry, to self-doubt, and let negative Nancy have her moment, and then go, I'm done with this. But we don't allow ourselves to be human and say, hey, you know what? I had a moment. I lost my shit.
Yeah. It's okay to not be perfect the whole time and to have this big fun, you know?
So,
strong a person as you are, male or female, it doesn't really matter. You know, there's, at the end of the day, we're human and we have, you know, those weaknesses and stuff. So it's being able to accept that non-judgmentally, see your emotions and see where they're coming from and be okay with that. And then, you know, tomorrow's a new day.
It is. And you know, what I've learned is that we always feel there's someone stopping us from moving forward. In reality, the only person in your way is yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do we learn to get out of our own way?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Not always easy.
No, it's not. So with the release of Erin Brockovich, the movie in 2000, how has your life changed? So I guess there was 2 big things. So first of all, there was the big kick that you got, which changed your life, you know, significantly.
It did.
And then when the movie came out, like, what was it like? You became a household name pretty much, you know, overnight. How was that? What kind of impact did that have on you and your life and your family?
A lot. Most people have even said to me, how exciting, how fun, and how your life must have changed. For me, even today, uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable having and to get a thicker skin where, you know, comments come in about your looks, or, you know, you don't look like Julia, or you're not as skinny as Julia. Wow, you need your roots done. Little zingers like that. And it became more uncomfortable. Yeah, I remember a conversation with somebody who was running for president, and I don't know if because I don't like to name drop, but it's pretty cool for me when Al Gore, during the elections, that he lost the whole Bush-Gore situation. And he's such an environmentalist. Had me to lunch to have that conversation. And he said, you know, remember, when you become in that place, people want you to walk a certain way, talk a certain way, be a certain way. And when that happens, you start to lose yourself. So and I remember seeing a picture of him after the elections, and, you know, he's out dancing, and they got that picture, you know, and you're sweating, and you're like, but see, that's who we want you to be, but we lose that ourselves. So I've always been uncomfortable bucking up against that. And how do I still be myself? And that was hard. It was uncomfortable. And I'm still uncomfortable with that. You know, I know who I am. Yeah. I did a red carpet. You stood me next to Catherine Zeta-Jones. Not happening again. No. I literally ran. And they were like, where are you going? I'm like, out of here. Oh. So.
Wow. Oh my God.
Not trying to be that, because I won't be that. And that's okay. I have my own beauty. And so it was a lot of reminders. I made a lot of mistakes. The situation that we're all in now, I think, has given us a lot of time to see a bigger picture, and to realize when you're cut off like that, to be able to look at yourself. And I can look back now, and I think I missed so much with my kids. You know, I had to work. I didn't get child support. They needed a roof over their head. the moments that I missed. And to be in this moment now and to see that makes me really sad. And if we could learn anything, is to appreciate and be a little more in the moment. You know, we worry so much about all the mistakes we've made, and we get so anxious about where we're going in the future that we're just actually missing a moment right now. And what I think I do feel sad about is I really missed that moment after the film, because I was too worried about what people would think about me or what would happen in the future. And I so regretted something in the past, or not my kids, that I just really forgot. I can't always answer you how it felt to me, because I think I missed some of that. It was a blur at some point. When I walked out on that red carpet, the lights and the photographers were blinding. It was all eyes on me. And of course, you know, I had to have on some low cut, I think my butt crack must have been showing. I was like, what am I doing? You know, I was shaking. And I wished I wasn't prepared for that. And you know what? Life doesn't prepare us for a whole lot of things.
No.
And so I missed some of it. It was overwhelming. It was just overwhelming. And I became uncomfortable because I was being seen, and my flaws and all being pointed out.
It's just amplified, isn't it? It's the spotlight. Yeah. What was it like meeting Julia Roberts for the first time?
You know, I'll tell you the first time I really met her. So I was on the set because Steven Soderbergh asked me to do a cameo. And in a scene, there's a waitress. They're in a rush. The waitress is me.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing a name tag that says Julia. And I'm watching Julia play Erin. I'm like, okay, see, no. This, you know, listen, had I dreamt this stuff up as a kid, I think you might have committed me somewhere. You would have said, she's really out there. But the very first time I met her, I was on set to do my little cameo as the waitress. And I was sitting doing hair and makeup. So there's a mirror right here. She came in over here. And she and I hadn't met or really hung out, if you will. And she saw me, and I saw her in the mirror, and she darted into another door and shut the door. And I'm like, okay, rude. And she came back out and walked behind me, and I'm looking at her, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen? And she came right up here to this side, and she reached her hand. She goes, hi, I'm Julia. And I looked up, and I'm like, hi, I'm Erin. And she goes, I'm so embarrassed. I don't have my boobs in yet. And so she just broke the ice. And that's how I first met her, really. She has a wonderful energy. You know, I pick up on things like that. I'm just very keen on those instincts that we've talked about. She can light a room up with her smile. I think she gave the performance she gave because she gets it. She knows the importance of the environment and health and love and that passion, and that came out in her. So it was it's still overwhelming.
Yeah.
That how did this happen? I don't know. I don't. But I do know one thing. I didn't do this alone. Had any one event or persons been out of step and we didn't come together in unison, it would not have happened. That is the power of us.
Takes a village or a community, literally, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
The collective power when you come together, which is exactly as you say. And I love, we were talking a little bit before as well, you know, coming from a mining background myself, and, you know, working with communities in remote, you know, Australia and Honduras.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously I work for some of the largest mining companies in the world, and even in Mount Isa, and I was so proud to be part of that company, because so many companies are doing the right thing, but there are a lot that also, you know, have a whole lot of legacy issues and have not been doing, you know, the right thing. Absolutely. And so I love how a lot of your focus now is working with the companies as well, working with the local communities. How do we work together to solve problems? You know, it's not, you know, a sort of us and them mentality. It's all coming together, in the power, whether it's in a situation like this or whether it's just in life, coming together for social change, and working
Correct.
together. That's really where the power is.
Absolutely. And that comes with us letting our guard down. And we seem to never want to do that. Corporations is the same. There's plenty of room for them to be the heroes, but they don't want to let the guard down. Yeah. They don't want to admit we made a mistake. And I just think that we're so much better. Yes, that happened, but for a whole host of reasons, we put that guard up, and then we clash. We can't accomplish something. I talk about this in my book, and I have seen communities repeatedly rise and rise and rise just by learning to let that guard down.
Yep.
And not be afraid to say, I don't understand what this means. Tell me. We won't do that. But they end up running for office, and they end up making that change. And once they're in that position of leadership, they can begin to see another side as well, that other things go on that led a situation to happen, that when you were over here thinking, no, I can't learn this, and you find out that you can start to see both sides. It's like anything in life. I just don't think anything's ever one-sided. No. And the divisions that I'm seeing in this world right now, it's this way or this way, is really tipping nothing's like that.
No, nothing.
It's all a chain event and an interaction.
Yeah.
And so, like I said earlier on, companies have the room. When you come into communities, and listen, I'm familiar with the mining companies. I've done a lot of work in Indonesia with mining companies. And one thing that is interesting that I've seen in Indonesia that kings will do, I understand you need to come in and mine for some industry purpose that would in the future benefit all of us here in Indonesia. But I know what will basically happen is a rape and a pillage to the land. So I need you to work with the community now and put into a fund money so that when you're gone, they still have, or we have a fund that can keep them working, that can keep their water clean.
Yeah.
And I think I've listened to you very much, and I can see your bravery and your courage. And that's a word that's really important. And how is it if we don't have that courage? I think we all have that bravery, but sometimes we don't know how to activate it. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, you have to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
You don't.
Know when to push that envelope and know when not to.
Absolutely.
I talk about this with my kids. They'll fry something out of their mouth, and I'm like, hey, and they're like, you do it all the time. And I'm like, it's timing. Yeah. So again, it's this moment. Step back.
Emotional intelligence and things are key to this.
It is. Excellent word.
We do that.
Emotional intelligence. And we're often taught that's a bunch of bullshit. Oh, no, it is not.
No. And it's not saying we don't have emotions. It's saying, how do we actually use it? Because they're tools that you can use, at the right time. How do you use that? Yeah.
And we as women can look way back on bravery, I can't tell you how scared I was my first pregnancy. I'm like, I'm pushing a 9 pound. Whoa, where's my courage?
Yeah.
Bring it on. And we've got to draw that self to us. Mm-hmm. And you can do it. But I know you understand. Because it is a very male-dominated society and where you work, and finding your bravery and your courage and your finesse. And it's bringing all of these beautiful components of yourself together. And know when to push, but know when I got to fold it for a minute. And when we do that, that doesn't mean you quit, and it doesn't mean you failed.
Yeah.
I'm stepping back for a moment.
Yeah.
And I need to bring these parts together.
Yeah.
To make my next push.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just going back to what you said initially, and this is what I love. And I feel like this is coming from Erin Brockovich. This is your permission, to have courage and to stand up for what you believe in, and just to do what you need to do. You've got to trust those instincts and act upon them. And people are looking for an outside validation or permission. And I
Correct.
feel that, this is ever someone telling you to do it. This is Erin Brockovich saying, this is your permission.
It is. And if that's what you need, which I'm interpreting as support, I'm going to be here to support you because you've got this. We're going through this again with the big fires in Northern California, and the settlement is here and all the plaintiffs are voting. Whatever their vote is going to be, I'm going to be okay with it because I'm with them and they know themselves. They know their loss. They know what happened in their environment. And I trust that they will make that best decision for themselves. So if you need permission from me, I'm here to support and give it to you because I know you know yourself and you will make the right choice. And when we do, we rise up, we stand up.
Yeah. Our
courage is on board. So if you're looking for permission, you've called the wrong person because I'm going to give it to you. Go get them. And that means not in a negative way. Go get them is find your courage, find your bravery, find your stick-to-itiveness. It's a moment. It's life. We're living it. It's the environment. It's worth the passion and the fight. That's life.
Right.
So go for it.
I love that. I have to ask as well, your character, played by Julia, comes across, she's sassy, she's bold, she's foul-mouthed. How much of that was accurate? And I also wanted to know, in that great scene, which I love so much, and you offer the Hinkley water to the lawyers, how much of that was true? Did anything remotely like that happen? And how much of the Julia is actually you?
Well, I still have an issue with my potty mouth. I still don't get why everyone's offended by that. We can dance around in a whole lot of communication and get nowhere. But when you're suddenly like, fuck off, they're like, boom. Okay. Oh, I heard you. Finally. So, yes, I'm 60. Right. Oh, even my mother, she's like, but I have to travel with a bar of soap with you. What is with your mouth? And I'm like, it's a universal word, but okay, I'll try to be conscientious of that. Yes, I did have a potty mouth and I still do. I'm cautious around the grandchildren, but yes, sometimes I'm slip. It just comes out like my conversation with you now. Just once in a while, fuck that, slips right on there. Whoa.
It's so powerful and it's so liberating. Sometimes it's just, you got to cut to the chase, don't you? And just.
You do. So I do have that. The boldness, I absolutely have still today, but it's a boldness because I absolutely know myself and I absolutely know what I've just read and seen. And that makes me confident.
Yeah.
Because I know. I could look back then and tell you some of that boldness may have come from uncertainty or insecurity because you were pushing on me and I was going to prove to you. And that may have been some of my flamboyant dressing from my own uncertainty that I wasn't going to be seen. And so boldness is really knowing yourself. Boldness is confident. We need to change around words because bold means what? You're a bitch. Honestly, we have to look at that. That's boldness is confidence.
Yep.
And so remember that about yourself. And I could tell you some of that bravado was coming from, and I see this with people in my own life. That bravado is not coming from confidence. It's coming sometimes from uncertainty.
Insecurity. Yeah.
And yes, that happened with the drinking of the water at the scene at the table. We brought that in water for your special for you folks, but it happened in a different way. It happened in court. So I bring this up in my book, The Truth of What Happened with the Blue Ribbon Panel and how science hijacked the study. There's a lot that goes on with science that gets hijacked.
Yes.
And I think we're seeing so much confusion in science right now. And science doesn't always know. It's a process of elimination in regards for scientists as well. And in Hinckley, the science got hijacked. And what had happened was PG&E's paid experts did a video of themselves and rewrote a study. So in a court of law, they'd win on that issue. And Stephen couldn't show that in the film at the time. So he brought up a very common sense thing for anyone to understand. The law you're looking over here and the science says this can't harm you. But that moment where Julia says, we brought that water in special for you folks. It's from a well in Hinckley. And the attorney stopped. We get it. There's a poison out there. Do I really want to drink it?
Yeah.
And so in court, we caught PG&E's paid experts. They filled a hot tub full of hexavalent chromium. And they videotaped themselves in it, drinking wine and smoking cigars to show everyone, see, it can't hurt you. And they rewrote the science. We caught them. Their study got in the Journal of Environmental Medicine, Occupational Environmental Medicine. They had hijacked Dr. Zhang's study. They paid him for it, who was the only scientist that had concluded in China that ingestion of chromium-6 in this community was causing cancer. And they rewrote it to say that it didn't. So we caught them in court, which unbelievable. The moment where that happened and the moment where the attorney asked the expert, listen, we've seen your video. We've brought you a water glass full of hexavalent chromium. Drink it. And they wouldn't. And so the judge was riveted. And the lawyer said, why not? And the expert's like, I don't know where that's from or what it is. And they go, but neither did the people of Hinckley. They didn't know what it is, but yet you told them it was so safe to drink. So drink it. It was silent in the courtroom. And the judge leaned over their bench. And he's like, drink it, damn it. And we're like, and now we're like, boom, boom, boom. Wow. But it was this moment that was there. And Stephen recreated that in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah.
During the time of the filming of the movie, because many of the records were sealed.
Right.
That really happened, but in a different way. Same effect.
That's so powerful. Oh, I love that. Wow.
So.
Oh my goodness. Erin, just what a powerful story. It's one of the most empowering, motivating, films, and obviously story that became a film. So what next for you? You mentioned you have a book coming out in August.
Mm-hmm.
You're still doing some work. You coming back down to New Zealand when our borders?
Oh, absolutely. When y'all let me back in, I'm like, hey, let me in. I love it over there. The beauty of the people, and oh my gosh, New Zealand and Australia are so unique. And it's just like touching a piece of the beginning. It's beautiful. I miss it. I feel like it's home. I am there every year. I have a great deal of work to do here.
Yeah. That
continues to go on. So I continue to do my work. I have started my own podcast. It has not launched yet. It's on its way.
Great.
The book. And I am excited that a production company came to me to create a character, very much as we've talked about, inspired by, I guess, who I am. And it's a show called Rebel, and ABC bought it. And it's a legal drama series. Rebel's quite the character, and it will be played by Katie Seagal.
Oh,
and
wow.
I have to laugh because my nickname used to be Peg Bundy. And She is quite the gal.
Yes.
And to see that this is coming to a platform through television, Andy Garcia is playing the attorney. That these stories are all of us, and a place where we can run you through what's happening through the drama of somebody's life, the vulnerability of the life, and the divorces. And John Corbett plays one of my exes. And being human and still prevailing.
Yes.
It's called Rebel.
Wow.
Was supposed to be out this fall. Everyone's got a delay with production, so it could be January 2021. But I'm very excited by that project. And I'm the executive producer. And I'm thrilled. Yeah. Because what you'll be seeing unfolding is real stories that are really going on around this world that lets us watch and go, I'm that girl too. I'm that person too.
The power to be able to see someone else's story and see your own story within you, I think, is so powerful, isn't it?
And we need that. I'm inspired by you. Really. You share that same passion. And what's so important is how we put that information out for others to touch and to grab and to see and believe. Yeah. And thank you for everything that you're doing. And
who would have thought you meeting in the Bahamas somewhere? I didn't even know where we were. Midway floating around
out to sea. Oh my gosh. 30 years ago, I stepped foot out in Hinckley, California. Wow. I really think on my birthday, I will cry that day out of happiness, not sorrow. But my gosh, time goes by in a blink of an eye.
It really does. Yep.
And if we could melt away all the insecurities and all the stuff that
holds us back. Yeah. And being able to reach your full potential, realizing what you take on and what you don't, and having the power to be able to do that. Yeah. Following your passion, as you say, and living on purpose, just actually achieve what you can achieve, together, importantly, lifting each other up.
It's so important. And, I find my greatest moments when I can be still and I can hear my voice and I've connected myself back to, for me, my source, the earth, the water, the air, the warmth of the sun, the smells, that environment. I am it. It is me. And allow yourself, please, that chance to reconnect, because it is in that space that you will find yourself.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so very much for joining us, Erin. I think
it's so nice to be here.
Yeah, it's just such timely words as well, obviously in the midst of so much change, uncertainty for a lot of people. And being able to find the voice and stand up, find their own, power within to make the right choices. And
it's true. And this crisis has hit me like a tsunami, as millions of us. I have been scared. I have cried. I have felt like darkness. I've had a racy heart. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a heart attack. I felt nauseated in my stomach.
Yeah. And
this is that moment where I've really, I go outside and I'm just, it's going to be okay. And it is okay through the silence, the warmth, just that space. It's been so scary. And I will forever be an optimist and hopeful. The shift is here, but we will come through it with more bravery, more courage, more strength, a greater understanding of ourselves and our environment than we've ever been. And it doesn't mean that everything has to be different. It will be different, but we need to embrace that, because like my mom always said, just because it's different or you're different doesn't mean you're inferior. And just because we're moving into something that maybe we needed to get here, it would be shocking. I would have never thought that it would take a virus, a pandemic to do that.
No.
But just stand still for a moment. And I know we will be okay. But I will tell you, it's been scary as all get out.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I really enjoyed speaking with you. And as I've shared, I'm going to say it again, you've exhibited great bravery, encourage yourself, and the work that you've done.
Thank you so much for all of your words of wisdom and just your insight and just your empowerment. And we look forward to the book coming out and the podcast.
Thank you. We, like I said, I am you, you are me. We are all together. We'll go out on the Beatles song. So
all of us together. Absolutely.
Don't forget to breathe and stay safe.
Yeah. Thanks, Erin.
Thanks so much. It was lovely.